Hello there, welcome to this video. Oh, I'm shouting again, they don't like when I shout, do I? Hello there and welcome to this video, and on this video I am going to be coming up with the Mount Rushmore of jazz rock. Okay, I've just done one of these on prog and I enjoyed it very much because I was able to bring the superiometer out. You know, I've added a few little, you know, bits and bobs to the superiometer, so it's now in fact voice activated. I don't need to go up and actually input the information in manually. I can just shout my questions over to it. It's a bit like ChatGTP, but far more dangerous and insidious. So we've got the superiometer over there. The superiometer is going to be coming up with the answers to this. So don't get angry with me. It's a superiometer. My job here is just to discuss its choices, and I'm pretty sure I will agree with all the choices. I don't know why, but I just feel that will be the case because I have so much faith in the superiometer to come up with the right things. So, you know, we don't want to have these statues of politicians and leaders. What have they ever done for us? Nothing. You know, look at Mount Rushmore. It's just a bunch of slave owners and racists. And haven't they got Teddy Roosevelt are there? Didn't he go around shooting, teddy bears or something? You know, they're all a rum lot, aren't they? Politicians. We don't want that. So my proposition is let's go and scrape their faces off and put up some real heroes, some people that we really do love. And what we need is a Mount Rushmore of jazz rock. And of course, if we do this, once we've got those, you know, stony faces of genius fusion up on that edifice, we will have jazz musicians actually enshrined in rock. It will be true jazz rock, won't it? True jazz rock. Oh, I like that bit. That was clever, Andy. That was pretty good, jazz rock. And he mentioned rock. You know, that's cool. Yeah, you see, it's all up here. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, really. So, superiometer. Oh, the superiometer's wagging his little tail now. He's waiting. He loves a question. Loves a question. Superiometer. I want to know who the. I want to know. What are we even talking about? I want to know who should go on. 4 musicians that would go on the Mount Rushmore of jazz rock. So, just having a think. It's primed and ready. I can see something forming slowly. And of course the first one is my Lord and Master, and I think your Lord and Master, John McLaughlin. I say that right, John McLaughlin. That's what I'm going for. I did put up a video which was supposed to just sneak out. They only wanted it up on my YouTube so that when somebody criticised my pronunciation, rather than answering them, I could just put a link in. So I put this video up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll sneak this video out. Just a little video explains how to pronounce John McLaughlin's name. And it's had a huge response, right? But according to John McLaughlin, and he does seem to pronounce it all sorts of different ways, a bit like me, so I'm doing it right, aren't I? Anyway, I'm going for, I know early on I didn't used to put the L in. I know this. I realised that months ago. So rather than say John McLaughlin, which is what I used to say, which is a very easy way of saying it, I like saying it like that. I'm going to put that L back in, John McLaughlin, but I'm not doing the glock thing. I just can't do it, not on camera, right? I'll just throw up. There's too much neck work in there for me, right? And it just presses on that little bit of the throat which you don't want to press on. So I'm going for John McLaughlin. So
hi, I'm John McLaughlin.
What we're going to say? He is the guy that invented jazz rock, as far as I'm concerned. Of course all these musicians were trying to do it beforehand, but they just didn't pull it off, did they? They didn't pull it off. You know, Gary Burton, Larry Corea, they didn't pull it off. It's interesting stuff. Frank Zappa had a good go. He came close. He came close without a doubt. Don Ellis, I think he did a lot. Miles Davis. Tony Williams' lifetime, even there. I don't think it happens till that first Mavish Orchestra album comes out, In the Mountain Flame, and on there the groundwork is done. Okay, you know, the supersonic speed of John McLaughlin's guitar, the integration of Indian music and folk music and country and western, a true fusion, not just trying to put jazz and rock together, but bringing other elements that give it a quality all of its own. And all the jazz rock bands that follow on after then always have a quality. They always have a quality in there that makes them sound all of their own. You can't just fuse jazz and rock. You have to put in that other bit of spice, you know, like Jelly Roll Morton used to do right at the beginning of jazz with his Spanish tinge. And with John McLaughlin, we get the Indian tinge, don't we? That's very important. You know, the machine gun-like drumming of Billy Cobham with the double bass drums, they're flying. Right? The signature sound of Jan Hammer. You know, the sound that for me, especially once he brings in the Moog synthesizer, is the defining sound of jazz rock. That's the sound of jazz rock. As is violins in jazz, violins in rock music, that's jazz rock, those two things there. Now we can't give that to the Mavish Orchestra because of course Zappa was doing it on Hot Rat, so I often wonder, because of course John McLaughlin will say my mum was a classical musician and I had violin lessons, I love the violin and it's an instrument in classical. I know all that, but it's a bit of a strange one because we go to Hot Rats, which came out in 1970, and we got Jean-Luc Ponty and Don Sugarcane Harris all over it. I've spoken a lot about Zappa on the last video, and I wouldn't be surprised if Zappa turns up on this one. We never know. Anyway, without doubt, John McLaughlin is the guy. He's the architect of it. He's the guy that comes up with a definitive way of fusing jazz and rock. But he's not doing it because it's clever. Back in 1971, John McLaughlin has got a vision. He's got a vision of using music to put out a message, a spiritual message of unity and enlightenment. He wants to take the audience and he wants to move them spiritually from one place to the next, right? This is a thing that John Coltrane, you know, tried to do, you know, that I think Sun Ra tried to do it, you know. That has always been in their music, the spiritual, the music as a vessel for enlightenment. The bizarre thing with John McLaughlin is, with this band that would go out and play for 3 hours at, you know, 100 million decibels at 100 miles an hour playing instrumental music, right? He made that work at a level that became, in the history of jazz, one of the biggest selling things ever. And it's the commercial success. I know the people who watch this channel hate this. They hate me to talk about commercial success. But believe me, every band that we talk about on here is here because they had at least some degree of commercial success. If they didn't, we wouldn't be talking about them. And so often, the truly great innovative things are innovative not because they hadn't been done before, but because they hadn't been done before, but they found an audience. The audience went, whoa, what's this new thing? We love it. And in the case of the Mavish Orchestra, this is the most out there rock band that ever existed in the history of rock music, right? There's a few others in there. The Residents are in there. Cardiacs are in there. Who else would I put in that? It's a very small list. I think I would put Zappa in there. But the Mavish Orchestra created, you know, some of the most uncompromising music, but they were massively successful and were able to tour around the world, you know, playing their music only for a matter of, you know, months really, a couple of years. They were able to reach all these people, right? And you go through life meeting people whose life was completely changed by just hearing a few seconds of this band. I am one of those people. This channel exists because of that revelation that I had back when I was 15, and you know, my mom tracked down a copy of Birds of Fire and I put it on, and at that point, up until that point, I had been searching, and at that point I had found. Right, so without a doubt, look at his proud stony face looking out into the vista. Look at him. That's where he should be. George Washington, but without the slave owning. And without the false teeth. The George Washington's got beautiful teeth, John McLaughlin. The George Washington of jazz rock. There he is. So, superiometer. Who are we going to have next on the list? Right, I can see the charismatic good looks of one of the greatest musicians to come out of this movement, Jacko Pastorious. Jacko, I don't need to say Pastorious, do I? I can just say Jacko, and you know who I mean, right? Rock and roll had its Elvis Presley. Punk had its Sid Vicious. Prog had its Peter Gabriel, perhaps, maybe. You know. And heavy metal has its That's another iconic person in heavy metal. There's so many tunes from Ozzy Osbourne. But Ozzy Osbourne's not like Jacko. Jacko's more like Elvis. Sorry, I went too far then. Let's back up. I'll scrub this. I'll start again. Rock and roll had its Elvis Presley. Punk had its Sid Vicious. And jazz rock had its Jacko Pastorious. Jacko is a sound innovator. He comes along and changes the sound of the bass. He changes the way you play the bass. He changes the technique associated with that instrument. He expands the range of the instruments in terms of sound and range. Right? He's one of the great composers of jazz rock. He writes stuff that is still to this day iconic, almost like jazz standards of jazz rock. But the guy also was dripping with charisma. Right? Weather Report, up until Jacko coming in, they were an obscure sort of electronic jazz unit, you know. It wasn't jazz rock, it was something else. If Jacko hadn't joined that band, Weather Report would be, they'll be in a minor league. We wouldn't be talking to them in the same way. Jacko turned Weather Report into a pop band with a light show, with thousands of people and tracks in the charts and on the radio. That's Jacko. Jacko did that. You know, people went to see it, and when that guy came out, you know, and he threw his talcum powder all over the stage and started doing his sliding around and his leaps and his bounds. This guy, he was a one-off. Jacko was a one-off. He was iconic. If I was creating an encyclopedia of jazz rock, and I could only put one person on the front, it wouldn't be John McLaughlin. He could do it with his double-neck guitar. He was iconic guitar with his, you know, the crew cut and the white suit and the double-neck guitar. Very iconic. But Jacko, right? And Jacko didn't do it through his clothes. He didn't have to keep a look. It was his personality. It was that look in his eye. Jacko's got a look in his eye. Now, I've spoken about it so much on his channel, and what can I say? But I haven't spoken about the look in his eye, have I? You see Jacko, and he's got it's like wise, knowing tomfoolery. That's what Jacko's got in his eye. Every time you see him, a little knowing smile, quirky. Right, this is someone who sees the world differently, and they know that they see the world differently. As I say this, the heavens open. Did you see the sun come shining? It's Jacko, he's here with us! You know, all the things I've said about Jacko, and I've been critical of Jacko as well, you know, because I think he's so charismatic and so wonderful that people want to turn around and say he's the greatest bass player in the world. And of course all the Alphonso Johnsons and all the Percy Joneses and all the Stanley Clarks and all the Ralph Armstrongs, you know, all these Fernando Saunders, the Doug Roches, all these bass players are incredible, right? They could have done a lot of what Jacko did, but they didn't. That's the point. But as I mentioned, the spirit of Jacko that you could see when you see any photograph of the guy and you look into his eyes. As I said that, the sun shone forth. Jacko was with us then. Well, I'd like to think he is, you know, because I've had some cool guests on this channel. But if we just had Jacko on. Jacko, if you were just on my channel, then that's the best person I've ever had on, isn't it? Even better than Narada Michael Walden. Just a touch. You know, of course, there'd be no Jacko without Narada Michael Walden, would there, Narada? You've told the story. If you don't know the story, go and check out my interview with Narada Michael Walden. Anyway, we're done. I'm going to move on. Superiometer. Who is the next person on the list? Right, who's this coming up now? Is it Elton John? You can't have Elton John, can you? Oh no, it's Jan Hammer! Jan Hammer! The hammer of fusion, the hammer of the gods, the real hammer of the gods, Jan Hammer. Some of you go and say, you can't have it on. You've just had John McLaughlin. You've just had John McLaughlin on. They're in the same band. You can't have, well, you know, you've got Miles Davis up behind you, and you haven't had Miles Davis on, and you'd have Jan Hammer. Jan Hammer, what about Joe Zawinul? You know, where's Joe Zawinul? You know, you've had Jacko. Well, if you're going to have Jacko, can't you have Joe Zawinul? Right. For me, Jan Hammer, and this is my opinion, and it's only my opinion, and you can have an argument with it, you know, and I won't listen, because I won't. Jan Hammer, to me, is the Charlie Parker of jazz rock. And if you haven't searched through my vast video catalogue here, you will find a video called Jan Hammer, the Charlie Parker of jazz rock. Why is he the Charlie Parker? Is it because he's so good? No, it's not because he's so good. Bebop wasn't created by Charlie Parker. It was created by Thelonious Monk, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Christian, you know, all those people at Minton's who were, you know, Kenny Clark, they're all playing a part in it. They've got this idea, but the phrasing and the sound comes from Charlie Parker, right? He comes in and he goes, this is the notes you're going to play, this is the sound you're going to have, this is rhythmically how you're going to place the notes. That's the most important thing in Charlie Parker, you know. Rather than everyone going, we've got and that sound really personifies it. You know, bebop is named after the bebop, and I think that name comes from Charlie Christian. That's another great Charlie Christian. You know, doesn't get the he's just deserves. Charlie Christian invented electric guitar playing, invented bebop, he invented rock and roll guitar licks, he was a virtuoso, he basically created the language of jazz guitar. God, Charlie Christian. And Jan Hammer's like that for me too. Jan Hammer, with a Moog synthesizer, going into a guitar setup with a bit of overdriveness, you know, with his thumb, the master thumb on that pitch wheel, not like the guys do it today, where they've just you know, can go into their digital keyboard and just program in a minor third. So every time they just push that forward, you know, that they can just get that sort of blues bend. That's not what Jan Hammer's doing. The control is not like that. Jan Hammer is bending that note. I don't know how it's set, those early Moogs. It might have been like an octave or whatever it was, but he's finding those notes. And with that, and his want to emulate the sound of not Jimi Hendrix, although I think he did want to do that, because if you've ever heard him do Manic Depression, it's just incredible. Great, best keyboard playing of all time. But he wants to have the sound of Indian classical music. He wants to take the keyboard and move it to the microtonic, right? And in doing that, he creates a sound. And in the Mahavishnuksha, once he starts to do it, you almost feel that they all start doing, everybody starts doing it. That's the sound, right? Guitarists start to do it. You know, saxophone players start to do it. Jan Hammer then leaves the Mahavishnuksha and he records, firstly, Like Children, First 7 Days, Oh Yeah, and Melodies. And those 4 albums, to me, are incredible. And it's, for me, the spirit of the Mahavishnuksha does not carry on into the albums of John McLaughlin. It carries on into the albums of Jan Hammer. The sound that I associate with that band is in those albums, but Jan Hammer, it's just more keyboard orientated, in a way cleaner, more funkier, more syncopated, right? But still it's the sound, okay? Jan Hammer very quickly grows tired of the whole jazz rock. I think by the 70s he's done with it. You know, we see that last hurrah of proper jazz rock with those Al Miolo albums. I've always thought Tour de Force is the album that really goes, this is it, everybody, you know, what a great genre that was. Now, let's move on, you know where we're going. We're going to the world of Fusak, we don't want to go there. And Jan Hammer doesn't go there. He goes into becoming, first off, the composer for the soundtrack to Miami Vice, and then a pop star. And it was very strange in the mid-80s, when I was such a huge Mahavishnuksha fan, to be able to you know, go into my local record shop and hear Jan Hammer playing, because it was at number 1 or 2 in the UK charts, Crockett's theme and the theme to Miami Vice. I remember buying that single. He's also played with a whole host of people, his stuff with Jeff Beck. Oh, Jan Hammer, come on! I know, but a lot of you don't like it. I know you don't like it, but I tell you, he has to be on there. Jan Hammer has to be on there. I would scrap the rest of them, just add Jan on. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. 4 Jans. 4 Jans faces on there. He's the Don. He's the master. He's the real deal. Right? That guy can play anything. He can do anything. He can play the drums amazing. He can play guitar, bass. I'm sure he can play the euphonium. Right, he can produce, he can mix, he can compose, and he can improvise in a way that is so iconic. He is in there as one of the greatest, for me, one of the greatest improvisers of all time. And it's so iconic. Me, with my feeble keyboard skills, right, who has subsumed the spirit of Jan for 40 years, I know how to go up to that keyboard and do a terrible version of Jan Hammer. Because do some Jan Hammer on that keyboard. Everybody knows what that means. You can just go up and do it, you know. Oh God, I mean, that sounded like a chicken being chased. But you know what I'm saying? I'm going to move on. We're going to move on. We're at 20 minutes. We've got 5 more minutes. I don't want to keep this short. I don't want to be going on for an hour. I know I can ramble, and we don't want to ramble. So who have you got last on the list? Right. So, we got somebody forming there. Little cheeky smile. Somebody full of jollity and levity and lightness, whimsy, right? But whimsy in a virtuoso controlled way that has never really been pulled off by anybody else in the way that Chick Corea can, right? Chick Corea has to be on this list. Chick Corea starts off in the Miles Davis groups. He's playing on all these really important albums. He's there along with John McLaughlin, Billy Cobham, and Joe Zawinul, Wayne Short. He's there at the beginning of it. Right, when he leaves the Miles band, he's far more interested in exploring free jazz, which he does with Anti-Braxton Circle and some of the ECM albums. And he really, breaks incredible ground. But it's not fusion. It's not jazz rock. I think as his Scientology kicks in, he has a desire to send his message to the people. I think that's one of the things that emerges, and he forms the first Return to Forever. Now, I do class Return to Forever as fusion. It's very light fusion. It's a fusion of jazz with sort of Spanish and Latin American influences. It's very light. We don't often get a rock beat in the back, but everything else is there. We've got the electric instruments, the incredible bass playing of Stanley Clarke on there. It's an incredible band, and if he'd have only done that, I think he would gained his place in the pantheon of jazz rock. But of course, in 1973, he forms the second incarnation of Return to Forever with Lenny White and Stanley Clarke, and originally with Bill Connors, and then later on with Al Di Meola. And for me, this is the second, after the Mavish Orchestra, it's the second great jazz rock band. When I first heard him as a kid, I always thought, oh yeah, you got the Mavish Orchestra, and then Chick Corea formed his version of the Mavish Orchestra, and it's his version. And as I've got older, I realised that Chick Corea's mission statement, his vision, his musical world was so strong by that point that he was able to integrate that into a high-powered, speedy rock context. Return to Forever utilise classical forms much more than the Mavish Orchestra. The stuff's much more arranged. And in doing that, it's much closer to progressive rock. I think that Chick and the guys in Return to Forever started to do what they were doing, and they went, oh, this is really cool. And then they noticed what Yes was doing, because you could hear the Yes influence, but I don't think it's because they were like, well, let's do what Yes is. I don't think it worked like that. Chick's compositional, because when you read stories about Chick, he was apparently composing all the time. If he was sat in a queue at the dentist, he'd write a string quartet, it was like this. So composition was so important to Chick. He's as a pianist, he's second to none. As an electric pianist, he's second to none. I've always had a little... I do love Chick Corea's synthesizer mode playing, I do. But for me, there is a much wider palette of keyboard stuff. On Romantic Warrior, there's a track written by Lenny White called Sorcerer, or Sorceress, can't quite remember. There's a piano solo on that is absolutely beautiful. It's a thing that you would have never heard inside the Mavish Orchestra. We have this, funky, cool jazz rock groove. We've got the guitars just, so laid back and funky. And in comes this sort of grand piano with all the hallmarks, that sort of brittle, precise, incredibly phrased approach of Chick Corea, where he feels as though this guy is absolutely in control of everything he does all the time. An absolute master of improvisation. There's a story about Chick Corea when Frank Gambale was in the band, and he'd done incredible guitar solo on this record, and right at the end he'd played a note he didn't like. And he went into Chick and he said, oh, is there any chance I can just change that note? And Chick turned around and went, no. And I said, oh, I really want to play it. He said, well, and Chick was like, well, if you didn't like it, why did you play it? to Chick, that must have been how he saw music, you know. What did you play that note for? Because I'm fallible. Oh yeah, I'm not. It's just incredible. He was a master musician. Now, the reason I think he deserves to be on this list is he doesn't let up, right? After Return to Forever, the groups he had with Steve Gadd, you know, the groups that made Leprechaun, My Spanish Heart, that made Mad Hatter, Tap Step, you know, Touchstone. This is incredible jazz rock fusion, right? And he's exploring such a wide remit, you know. There's classical music going on in there. On ECM, he's doing like improvised music, he's doing straight jazz, all sorts of different things. So if we listen to a band like Three Quartets, which is basically an acoustic jazz quartet, piano, double bass, drums, saxophone, and you listen to that, you know, opening quartet on that, and when Brecker comes in with that saxophone solo, that's heavy jazz rock. It's heavy metal jazz rock. And there's not an amp or distortion pedal in sight. It's incredible. When the 80s kicked in and jazz rock turned into fusion, which turns into Fusac, and it's all awful, you know, and us jazz rock fans are having to, you know, risk our ears by buying GRP albums in the hope that, you know, maybe Frank Gambale or Dave Grusin or David Valentin had done something heavy and hard that sounded like Return, and they never had, you know. And when in 1985-86 Chick Corea announced the formation of the Electric Band, I was like, oh, it's on GRP, you know what it's going to be. And it wasn't. It was sometimes, but on the whole, that was a beacon of light. Tribal Tech, right? This is the 80s jazz rock for me. Electric Band, Tribal Tech, and then behind those in the darkness, I would have like Bill Laswell's stuff, I would have the M-Bass stuff, Primetime All Metcom, and all that weird stuff. That's when the 80s was interesting. But in terms of straight down the line jazz rock, Chick Corea's Electric Band and Tribal Tech, you know. And right up until the day he passed away back, you know, a couple of years ago, Chick Corea didn't let up. He was doing incredible stuff all the way through. It's the eclectic bounty of that guy, and so much of what we associate with jazz rock, you know, these sort of unison runs and bass right up in your face, you know, all that stuff, the arrangements, you know, if you go and buy a modern jazz rock album, there's a lot more Chick Corea. There's a lot more Brecker Brothers as well, but I think Brecker Brothers, you know, they took their inspiration far more. I mean, obviously there's all that, you know, dance music and rhythm and blues in there, but I think in terms of the arrangement side of it, you know, that comes from the sort of Chick Corea view of jazz rock far more than it does from the Mahavishnu view of jazz rock, you know, and Weather Report. So there we have it. Let's have a look again, shall we? Look at that beautiful sight. Wouldn't that be good if we could just get that up in America? You know, I know they're not going to go for my prog one because it's who's on there? There's only one American on there. You know what they're like. They're not going to have that. But here, look, we've got a Mexican on there, and we've got a Yorkshireman on there, and we've got you know, Czechoslovakian guy there. But Jacko's American. You see. The world is full of different people, and when we bind music down to race or country or creed or culture, it just does not work. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That, you know, when the superiometer randomly picks the greatest jazz rock musician, what we have is a beautiful example of what's the thing, multiculturalism. Look at it, it's beautiful. I love it. I'm being serious here. I love it. I love the thought of those, but there's four individuals there, you know. But there's no black people on it. Oh God, I've gone wrong, haven't I? I didn't go wrong. It's superiometer. I'll just blame superiometer. I'll blame the superiometer. That's the list it came up with. Oh, I've made an error here, haven't I? You know, one guy I haven't got on, and I was quite aware of this before we started. That's why I decided to stick that in the background. Miles Davis is not on this, is he? And you're going to be saying, how can Miles Davis not play? Where's Herbie Hancock? Where's Herbie Hancock? Right. The reason why Miles Davis is not on here is because I don't really think he ever made any jazz rock. He may have done in the 80s. Decoy. Right, on Decoy and, We Want Miles. That era, the early 80s stuff. The Rubber Band era. The 80s stuff was jazz rock. He was taking his lead from like Michael Jackson and Prince. And Prince, those pop stars were basically, that was pop music infused with jazz rock. That's what that is. Jazz rock's influence on 80s pop music is just unfathomable. You can't get your head around it. There's no Thriller without jazz rock. But anyway, in the 70s, for me, Miles was doing something completely different. Right? And I've pulled out what I would consider about as close as jazz rock as he ever got, which is this later period 70s stuff. But that's like African drum choir, electric, psychedelic rock music. That's what that is. It's not jazz rock. It's just not jazz rock. It's his version of jazz. It's Miles' version of jazz rock. Miles doesn't deserve to be on this. He's too monumental. Right. So what I propose is that we'll do the Mount Rushmore, but then they need to find some other mountain. We find another mountain, and that one will just be for Miles. Nobody else, just Miles. Okay? That's what we want. And then we need to find a whole country. We need to find a whole rock. Maybe we could do this with a country like Greenland that nobody really cares about. Maybe we could get Greenland and we could, get rid of all the snow and turn that into Louis Armstrong. That is what these people deserve, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, got it to the end of it. All these people that think I'm a racist, they're going to be having a go at me for not having any black people on this list. Sorry. I think there's a serious point here. I think, I won't say it, I'll just get me in more trouble. I won't say that. You have to watch what you're saying nowadays. You can't just say what you think. You can't say it, so I won't say that. Because Tony Williams could be on there. I could get Jan Hammer off if you want. I think I could pull Jan Hammer down, stick Tony Williams or maybe Billy Cobham on there, without a doubt. Billy Cobham is like so important, Spectrum. Is Spectrum by Billy Cobham. Someone said this the other day, that this was the high point of jazz rock. Not the Mavericks, not Headhunters, not Return to Forever. The high point was Spectrum. It's an interesting idea, isn't it? For me, with Cobham, I loved Crosswinds and Total Eclipse more than Spectrum. I know that shouldn't be the case, but it is for me. The first album I heard was Crosswinds, and that sound I absolutely loved. And when I heard Total Eclipse, it was sort of an expansion. It was like a science fiction expansion on that Crosswinds sound. When I heard Spectrum, it was Tommy Bowling for me. Tommy Bowling just is incredible on that album. It was Tommy Bowling's album. I never thought, oh, this is amazing. What's that Alphonse Mouzon album that Tommy Bowling's on? What's it called? I got that when I was a kid. I didn't like that. I thought it was Alphonse was really trying to cash in here, and he just didn't pull it off. Loads of sort of hollow jazz rock posturing. Yeah, it's a funny one. Anyway, it's a superiometer. I'm going to blame some imaginary thing that doesn't exist, to cover my tracks. That's what I'm going to do there. Oh, did I just say that? I've just let the cat out of the bag, Is this the death as a superior? I'm really sorry there. Yes, I just did. It's like Father Christmas, isn't it? You know what happens when you discover that Father Christmas doesn't exist? Christmas over for you, isn't it? It's over. Am I going to have to put the superiometer to bed? I can't put it to bed. It didn't exist. It's not real. It's a device. It's a theatrical device to make these videos more interesting. And it's there to poke fun at the idea of an objective list of characters that personifies the absolute quality of art or music, which you can't do. Can't do that. It's not possible. It's all nonsense. So why would I want to do it? The reason is because the conversation's interesting. I've got all serious, haven't I? I've got all serious. Oh, if you like this video, like it. If you want to see more, subscribe. If you want to see the next video, ring the notification bell. If you want to support me over on Patreon, I'm about to film a Patreon video now. I'm going to do a Patreon video right now for the patrons. A special, something I can say what I want. I will probably talk about the very thing that I didn't want to say just then. I probably will, actually. That's what I'm going to do. Because they don't judge me there. They don't judge me there. Because if they do, they're out. They pay their £5 and then they get in there and they go, God, Andy's opinionated. You don't have to talk some rubbish. They're gone. You know, so what I've got is an echo chamber. They call it an echo chamber. The Patreon, Andy Edwards Patreon echo chamber. You know. But if you want to become a patron and get involved in all that, then become a patron. There are links there. And if you don't want to become a patron, but you still want to give me your hard-earned cash for this nonsense that I do, then there's a YouTube tip jar. Then there's money going in. People out there are so kind with their little messages. I can't answer them all because I don't know how to. I don't know how to access the emails from PayPal when I have a look at the payments. I can see the names. And at some point I might have to do that YouTube thing where I have that very fast, you know, like sort of 1980s sitcom list going past of patrons that's supposed to make them feel like that was their money well spent. Oh, I've just given him, you know, I've just given £5 to that YouTuber and he hasn't done much this month, but I did notice, I think my name did flash past at 85 miles an hour on that last video at the end. I'll have to try and pause it. Oh, I missed it. Oh, YouTube, it's so difficult. It doesn't react straight. I try and press pause. He becomes again, oh no, I've missed it again. I just want to see my name. Because then I'll know I exist. That's all I want, is to know I exist. I just want people to know I'm here. I am here, aren't I? I'm here, aren't I? I do exist. You know, I'm not just a passive receiver of some people I don't know's stupid, you know, ideologies and comments on YouTube. I can go on there, I can put a comment up down below and they'll know that I exist. You know, yes, you do exist. You exist. Go out the door now. Right, open the door and breathe in the air, your air that's going up your nose, and look at your sky and your sun and your world and your little butterflies. They are all yours. They're all part of your life. Right, go outside, do that right now. Shall we do it? Shall we all go and do it together? Come on. You know, if you know, this is it. So I've detached. That's the tripod that you normally sit on when we're doing this. I've detached this. Right, I've detached this. I'll take out the power as well. Let's go over here. Right, this is the big lesson of my YouTube. Right, this is the big lesson of today. I'm going to go outside because it's a beautiful day out here. Oh, I'm going to go out here. Right, and over there. See that there? That's the sky. That big blue thing there is the sky. It's always there, letting us know that this is our world. It's your world and it's my world. And for you, it is entirely your world. And what you got to do is go out the door, right? Look up at the sky. Look up at that sky there, right? Look at the beautiful blue of that sky. And you breathe in. Hold it and consider all your troubles and anxieties and then let them go. Ah, you have to make that sound. Right, do that a few times and you will know that you're alive. You will know that you're a real person in a real world. You don't need this fake metaverse that they're preparing for us. Right, I think I've moved over into philosophy Sunday today, and it's not Sunday, is it? So I can't do it. I've got to stop. Oh, look at that. You see, the camera has it's picked up this sort of beautiful glow from outside. And it's even the camera knows it's alive. Right, let's just get this back on the stand. Right, oh, I can't do it. It's hard, this bit is. Let's get you back on. I don't think I can. Oh, yes, I have. There we go. Let's just line it all back up for the next video. Oh, see, look at this. This is the real chaos of the world. This is chaos here. What you're watching is chaos. And I need to get it so that's all straight in the back. We're back now. You see, that is order. Chaos and order. We had a bit of beautiful chaos then. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, I hope that made you feel alive. I do. I really do. I think we're done. I'll see you on the next video.